listening to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan.
Hey, welcome back to Home Sweet Home with Russ McClellan on this Saturday morning. Everybody's staying in place, staying safe, quarantined. You got to love it, or not so much, like we said earlier. But, you know, the good news is anytime there's adversity, anytime there's a ground shifting underneath you, there's always opportunity. There's always a way to seize the day and double down and really find clarity in what it is that you're looking for. And I think right now there might be some of you listening that are wondering, how do I get a side hustle? How do I get out of this dead-end job that I'm in? How do I do something that the next time something like this happens, I'm in a little bit more control and I don't get furloughed by my boss without my permission? Because you know what? A lot of people got furloughed without their boss, without their own permission from their bosses, right? The good news about real estate is you can still hustle and you can still make money, and most importantly, you can do it while you're helping people. And there is a lot of ways to handle the real estate business, and it's not the same for everyone. Amanda Light is my guest right now and my friend. She's also my business coach. I own a Keller Williams Realty franchise for those people that are not familiar with what we do. We have a lot of agents. We have almost 60 agents. We're the largest real estate company in North Central Washington. And in large part, it's because we're following a system called Keller Williams. So, Amanda, thanks again for tuning in with us today and calling in. And, you know, maybe we can continue the conversation because you've gone a couple different directions. You've kind of stepped into and out of different roles and explored different opportunities to achieve your goals. So maybe you could share with what that all kind of looked like for you. Yeah,
I was sharing that from the boutique firm that I owned, the independent firm that I owned, that I kind of learned that was for the birds. I wasn't really in my zone of passion anymore, if you will, and I wasn't getting to help as many people as I wanted to. And so looking up from that, I had told my company that I thought we needed to go somewhere else. I interviewed around, ended up buying out a couple of franchises. And as I was buying out those franchises, something happened. I was 28 years old, and my immune system attacked my spinal cord and paralyzed me from the waist down.
Ouch.
And you don't see that coming at 28. And they never did figure out what happened there. However, I did pursue some really aggressive treatment. Maybe you and I could talk about that some other time. And coming off of that, I'm perfectly fine now. I'm on vitamins. I walk around just like everything's great. And that's like a whole story in itself, probably, Russ. Yet that could have completely knocked me out. Could have knocked me out of the industry. Could have done a bunch of things. However, as actually fate probably would have it, the guy that I was talking about earlier that taught the career night back when I was 18 years old had gone to Keller Williams, and he was opening a franchise near me. And he called and said, "Thought you might be interested." And I told him, "No way, I've never heard of that, and I would never work for anybody else again." And he said, "Well, I thought you might want to be an investor." And I laughed at him. I said, "Yeah, I'm the last girl in the world that would give you a dime to open a real estate company nobody's ever heard of." She thought, Keller who, right?
Keller who. I've heard that.
Keller who, yeah. And so I said, I don't know if you know this, but I've been really sick. And, I opened a property management company, opened this independent firm. So basically, I've had 4 real estate companies in the last 5 years, and we had a recession, and then I couldn't walk and had to do a bunch of chemo to fix my health. And so I'm just not interested, thank you. And fortunately, because he'd known me since I was 18 years old, he called back a couple days later, and he said, "If for no other reason than out of respect for me, will you please listen? And I really think this could make a difference in your life." So out of respect for him, of course, I took that meeting. And he explains to me why Keller Williams was so different. And it got enough of my attention that I showed up for the event that I was telling you about earlier. However, what he said was every real estate company in town plays in this space of you being an entrepreneur, you being self-employed as an agent. And what they're going to talk to you about is sell a house, sell another house, sell another house. Okay, great job, go sell another house. Well, Keller Williams is really more about teaching those who want it to go from self-employed to being a business owner. Robert Kiyosaki in Cash Flow Quadrant talks a lot about this, right? That's the whole premise of the book. But Keller Williams is the only company that plays in that space. How do you go from being self-employed, where you're exchanging just time for money and it's all about you owning the job of going and selling another house to having a future beyond just being the agent that manages the transaction. And for me, from where I was, that was the most attractive thing. And I was skeptical at first because it sounded good in theory, but was it going to be real? So I showed up at the event, and the perfect storm of what was going on in my life was coming off of the adversity of being paralyzed and that being an unexpected thing. I was kind of in a bit of an early midlife crisis, is what I like to call it. But you just start, when something like that happens, when you really face adversity, you really have to dig deep and think about what you want for your future. You can either get buried in what was there, and I could have just gone to like support groups and just been in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, or I could decide that I want a different future for myself. And that's where I was. I also had a young son that I was thinking about. What do I want my legacy to be? Do I want it to be that, mom just worked hard and then got to a place where she didn't go to work and she just settled and like this was the end of it? So when I got to Keller Williams and I started looking around at what people were doing, first thing that struck me was the abundance of sharing, just the collaboration. I couldn't believe that they were telling their secrets. Second thing that struck me was they were all, like, their agents who'd been in the business a lot less time than me were doing way more than me. Were having a bigger impact than me. They were helping more clients than I was. And I'm like 13 years into the business at this point. And the only difference between me and them, I assured you, is not hard work. It was that they had a smarter system and somebody was teaching them to run it like a business. And so that was, even after I'd owned my own companies and owned these franchises, that was completely absent from the conversation. And I kind of created this little bubble in my world. Like, I didn't realize I had done it until I was at Keller Williams and somebody popped it, which was everybody told me how great I was. Like, none of my agents or my employees were going to come and say, let's work harder, let's go do another goal, or let's raise it, or whatever. Everybody was comfortable. In fact, through the entire last recession, we didn't lay anybody off. We continued to sell more houses, right?
Yeah,
and so nobody was coming saying, nobody was driving me or challenging me to think bigger. And then I get to Keller Williams and I see all these people doing so much more. And that was an awakening for me, because did I want my legacy to be that I settled, or did I want my legacy to be that I was going to be growth-based and that I was going to go impact the world? And I saw Keller Williams as having lots of opportunities beyond just being an agent or being a brokerage owner to go impact the world. And so I can talk more about that if you want. But
well, it's funny that, it's being a big fish in a little pond is a blessing and a curse, right? I mean, there's some tremendous. I went to a tiny high school and played sports, and it was fun. I wasn't the guy that ran the fastest, jumped the highest, but I was well known in a small town, and that was beautiful, and it was a beautiful life. But at the same time, there's limitations there that it sounds to me like, coming from a small 13 miles outside of a small 3,000 person town in Arkansas, you've manifested yourself through courage in a way that is, what I know about you, you seem happy. You seem like you're content and in the moment. You're living in the present, but you're like unapologetically aggressive towards goals and towards having fun to achieve those goals, and most importantly, achieving the goals of other people now. And that's a cool spot to be. I mean, you should be commended. And what you've shown me over the last month and your tenacity to just go above and beyond the average. I mean, I realized that one thing about Keller Williams that teaches me is that, and I think life does too. It's 30 years in real estate and ups and downs and all arounds. And, all of a sudden realizing that the only thing when you feel like you master something is you realize you don't really know very much. And there's always somebody else out there that can do 100 times more than you can. And so then you're like, okay, retargeting, let's start over.
Yeah. And I think, Russ, real estate has been great for me financially. So I'm not allergic to money. I don't want to give the impression
right.
of that. But it's never been about the money, if that makes any sense.
Sure it does. Yeah.
The money is a natural byproduct of showing up with a heart to serve others. And the more, Zig Ziglar says it best, right? If you help enough people get what you want or what they want, you'll have everything that you want.
Well,
I think my story is just me showing up every day for, like, how can I help Russ go get what he wants? and align with him in a partnership way so that we both accomplish that. And you get a financial reward for that, yes. And you also get the fulfillment of it matters. I feel like what I do every day matters. And I'm in love and I'm happy with the journey. It's not like I've arrived. I will never arrive.
Right.
I'm on a journey, and I'm really happy that journey causes me to grow in every single coaching conversation I have or every single relationship or interaction I have. I feel like I'm in conversations that are causing both parties to grow, and we're both winning financially and from a growth journey standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that what you're doing for people, and I think the last thing, we got about a minute left, and I appreciate it very much. I know you've had a long day, long month, and you're just plowing the road. But, when you come from that place that you really do care about people versus that money, which is kind of it's nice. Like you said, you're not allergic to it. But at the end of the day, your big why, when you talked about, you look at your kids and your son, and you're thinking about, being in a wheelchair the rest of my life, and that's not your legacy, And granted, we know people that overcome that. They don't get out of the wheelchair, and they're still selling real estate. I mean, they're at a high level. Right. I mean, it's incredible what people can do. And it's incredible to surround yourself with people that really love you, love the business, love the people they care about, and there's some integrity behind it. And I think Keller Williams, that's one of our goals. It's one of our cultural, kind of mindsets that we really try to do. So, I know we're kind of running out of time, but I wanted to thank you, and maybe next week we can talk a little bit more and kind of continue this story of Amanda Light. If you want to get a hold of Amanda Light, by the way, if you're a business owner, you can email her at amandalight@kw.com, or you can give her a call, 202-440-8213. Thanks, Amanda. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Russ. Thanks for having me.
Home sweet home. Thanks, Keller Williams. I love my dream home.